Welcome to our April meeting. If you haven't grabbed some treats, they're in the back, so do that. We're really lucky tonight to have two experts on information. And if you started in libraries like I did in the 70s, before the computer age, all librarians were like reference librarians, and they were always finding information for everybody. And we would spend hours finding business and science information in the department I worked in, and it was exciting and it was fun. And then all of a sudden, this thing called the internet came, and everybody became an expert on finding information. And they didn't think that there was any need for librarians and libraries anymore, which is completely wrong. Just like they told us the book would be dead because no one would read books anymore, also wrong. But information has become increasingly it's exponential how much information is available, and it just keeps getting faster and faster, and how quickly. And in these politically charged times, it's sometimes very difficult to determine what is true and what's not true. It looks true, it looks like a picture, it looks like it could be right, but it's not. And so Casey and Courtney have developed this program so that they can make people aware of how you find valid information, what things can you be looking for, where can you verify sources, and that type of thing. And they're kind enough to do this with your taxpayer dollars. They didn't charge us to be here tonight because you prepaid for this program. And after they're finished, and take as long as you want to ask them questions, then we'll go over some of our announcements for upcoming things.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for having us here. I'm Courtney, for anyone who hasn't met me before. I guess I'll stand over here. And then this is Miss Casey. And we're just going to start out with kind of the basics. What do we mean when we say media literacy? And I think, to Anne's point, the literacy has been around forever, and we've all learned how to kind of encode and decode these symbols, how to understand messages, how to critically analyze text through reading or visual media through TV shows or movies. And a lot of those skills are still very applicable in this current environment. It's just that, in the 24-hour news cycle, the volume of information that we can get all the time has really changed. And the mediums or the types of information that we're getting may be different. But I think it's kind of important to break it down and just start with that reminder that this is just another form of literacy. And a lot of those skills that you use every day, you just have to apply to a new type of media, in a new way. So a lot of what we're going to share are things that you probably already do intuitively, or may just be novel resources or new kind of contexts in which to apply some of these things. But it's not as maybe intimidating or overwhelming as it might seem on its surface. It's just another form of literacy. So, to start with something that you all are probably very familiar with already, kind of a basic concept when it comes to all forms of literacy, is this idea of confirmation bias, which is just a natural tendency that we all have as humans to seek out information that aligns with our existing beliefs, or kind of dispel, or in the case of today's environment, just not try and seek out sources or information that might push back against some of our strongly held beliefs. And social media feeds into this idea of confirmation bias quite literally. It actually feeds us through our Facebook or our Instagram or whatever social media we're on, information that we probably will like or agree with or will make us feel good. And so it's even more important for us to kind of take that pause and think about what those biases are and how we can combat them.
Be also known as your algorithm.
Yeah. So this is a perfect kind of example of this in the news environment. So let's just say you have kind of a pretty strongly held belief already that later start times for school are better for teenagers. If you were presented with two news articles, these are both reputable sources, Time magazine and US News, but they have these two very different headlines or kind of ways of framing the news. If you already believed that later start times were better for teens, which one would you probably be more likely to share? Obviously this one, right? So unless you kind of take a pause and think about, like, read the full article, think about, why this might be resonating with you, you might be missing more context or more information about the results of a particular study or something like that. So the first step of kind of combating confirmation bias is to recognize what your strongly held beliefs are. Are there certain issues or topics that are really important to you that you already have a really strong set of beliefs around? Then that's probably articles or news sources or social media posts that are talking about that topic will probably be those that you really need to investigate additionally. And then thinking about whether a post or a news story really resonates with you emotionally. I was thinking about this a lot this week because I've found myself a lot lately, whether I'm reading something or I'm listening to a news story on the radio, my car, I'll find myself like physically nodding along, like, yes, yeah, and that's like a physical key to you that, okay, this is really resonating with me in my soul, and I should probably do a double check, right? This is something that's important to me. So that's something I've been thinking about. If I feel that strongly about it, maybe I should verify before I start spreading this news. And then, are you seeking out multiple sources and viewpoints? And we're going to talk about how to kind of diversify your media environment in order to kind of check some of those stories or situations where you might have those strong reactions. So one great source that we did provide a handout for everybody, just to give you an example, for this idea of diversifying your media, is called All Sides. And this is an organization that evaluates media perspective. So it's not looking at accuracy of content or evaluating kind of the validity of different perspectives. It's just looking at the perspective on which, through which they're coming at a particular issue. And they do that through a lot of data. So you can actually go and be a survey rater on the All Sides site if you want. They send out blind surveys, so they'll send out a news story with all the sourcing removed, and they'll just ask thousands of people to rate kind of what perspective do they have on this issue. And they combine that with data from experts who are trained to identify bias and some third-party sources to kind of get at this bias breakdown of sort of left-leaning to right-leaning and in between. And here's an example of what one of their ratings looks like. So it'll break down for each news source, kind of how they determined the rating, where it fell, and it'll give you dates too. So it'll say it last was blind survey rated in 2024, and this changes all the time as kind of these news sources change and the people who are writing for them change. So that kind of handout that we gave you was a point in time of 2025 of when they ranked these sources, but it's just a good resource to go see kind of where different outlets might fall. And I thought this point was really important too. They're not saying that you should only look at the sources that they've rated center or certified balanced. They're saying it's important to look at a variety of sources kind of across that perspective, which makes sense in this context of verifying your sources and checking some of those biases, but also just as humans, it's helpful and interesting to understand how people across the political or other spectrums are talking about or viewing certain issues. It helps us relate to each other. All right, passing it along to Casey.
All right, so we're going to really dig into the different types of misinformation. But it's important to define misinformation. So it is false or inaccurate information that is spread, but it might not be with the intent to mislead. Perhaps it's somebody sharing information that they're not aware is misinformation, whereas disinformation is different in that it is deliberately intended to mislead. And these are all the kind of different types of false information, and we're going to dig into those a little deeper here. All right, so I think we're all pretty familiar with satire. That's your Saturday Night Live. That's your The Onion, right? So really the purpose is to entertain for humorous purposes. And I think the majority of us probably know when we see satire, but not everyone. Some people might take it at face value and repost an Onion article thinking that it's the truth. They would not be right in doing that, but that is one type of misinformation. False connection. I'm sure we've all seen these really sensationalized headlines, ads like this. And then when you actually click into it, if you're inclined to do so, you see that essentially there's no tie to the content from the headline, or it's just a very watered down version, right? You need to remember that clicks equal monetization, right? And so that's often what some of these sensationalized headlines are wanting you to do. They want you to click. Somebody monetizes from you clicking. So it's really important to be on the lookout for that. All right, so imposter content. It's exactly like it sounds. Do you think that that's actually ABC News? Does that look like the ABC News logo?
Is it ABC round?
Uh-huh. It looks like it. It's very close. That is not exactly it, though. In fact, I think the video we're going to show is ABC News, so we will see the logo. It's designed to look like a reputable source. That is not the actual ABC News logo. Do you remember Barack Obama signing an executive order saying that the Pledge of Allegiance is banned in schools? I don't remember that. I don't recall that. I think people would have been very vocal about something like that happening. So that's imposter content, trying to pretend it's a reputable source to get you to believe it's content. Manipulated content is really interesting to me here. All right, so this is a campaign for Hillary, I believe. Which photo do you think would have been from her camp? Which photo would have been from maybe another camp? To show how popular this particular Omaha rally was, right? So pictures are very deceiving. They can be. And we can frame a picture in a way that makes something look more maybe successful, maybe better attended. I think we saw a lot of this recently with rallies, right? So that's manipulated content, and that can mislead us into kind of thinking something's the case that it's not. These are, I'm sure we're all very familiar with. So propaganda. No. Oh, yes, sorry. Okay, so propaganda is essentially a movement to try to change somebody's mind on something, right? A lot of times it's political. Sometimes it's for good. Do you remember the Barack Obama hope posters? That would have been seen as a form of propaganda, right? I'm sure we all know the infamous Rosie the Riveter posters. It was originally, got some notes here, created by Westinghouse Electric, really to boost morale with women that already, right, were working in factories, especially kind of commercial factories making ammunition and so on for World War II. And then it kind of bled over in trying to persuade women into the workforce, into working in factories, when a lot of the men were over fighting World War II. So that's prevalent everywhere, right? Propaganda is everywhere. And then, of course, conspiracy theories. And so this is essentially trying to come up with another reason why something happened, right? And so a very infamous example of this is the moon landing, and folks trying to say that that was just all done on a Hollywood set. I mean, come on. So lots of conspiracy theories out there. The Bermuda Triangle is another popular one, right? So both are very prevalent types of misinformation. All right, so I don't know if you're familiar with this acronym. I learned it in school, and they kind of beat us over the head with it. But a quick little test called the CRAP test, kind of an unfortunate acronym. But these are kind of some things to start asking yourself when you're looking at different types of information, and just really important in being a critical consumer of information. So is it current? It's really important, especially with politics, finance, education. There's certain kind of subject categories where currency is really, really important, right? Is it reliable? Who wrote it? And how do they, where do they get the clout to write this? Authority, that actually kind of ties into reliability as well. Kind of what are the credentials of the person that wrote this? What is their background and their experience? And of course, purpose and point of view. And I think that's a lot where kind of some of that confirmation bias comes in as well. All right, so I'm going to share this with you, and this is in your handouts as well. It's called the Legitometer, and this was put together by a very reputable source called Common Sense Media. Portions of Common Sense Media are actually crowdsourced reviews on everything, books, movies, etc. I've actually used it before. I have twin 7-year-olds, and so there have been movies that my husband and I loved when we were growing up, and I'm like, I don't know if that's appropriate for them or not. So I'll type in the title and see kind of where other parents have ranked it and what's the content. But I do want to point out something here. This is from 2021. So, okay. So even older than I thought. So what maybe was legit in 2017, I don't know. Might want to give a second thought today, right? So this is saying legit information is coming from websites with a .org, .gov, or .edu. Maybe. Has images with credits. Yeah, I think that's pretty legit. Headlines that are direct and to the point, not that false connection, not those sensationalized headlines, right? Now this one you have to be careful with. Evokes a strong emotional reaction. A lot of times that's what misinformation is trying to get at, right? Whether it's a strong negative emotion or a strong positive emotion, it wants to pull on those emotions. It's kind of a psychological approach. The date is accurate. Other organizations are reporting it, so you can corroborate the information. And then this is kind of, again, you've got this handout. This is where you might want to start questioning things. And then we've got our instances on the far right over here that are definitely indicators that it's false or fake information. Lots of pop-ups and banner ads. Again, the headlines are using really, hyperbolic language, epic, amazing, unbelievable. Some of these would be reason to pause and consider whether that's accurate information or not. All right, so we're going to get into AI now. This is like, oh gosh, okay. So AI is everything from automated bank systems to doctored videos and photos that can be incredibly damaging and dangerous. We're going to play this and then talk about it.
One man is in custody after showing up at a distribution center and threatening those FEMA workers. Hurricane survivors and support teams now have to worry about yet another threat: artificial intelligence. Our misinformation and technology expert Emmanuel Saliba joins us now. So what do we know this hour just about AI getting in the way of these ongoing relief efforts?
Kara, you and I have been having conversations over the last 2 years, and every time we talk about AI, generative AI, and its ability to create hyper-realistic photos and videos, I say, this is another turning point. And here we are again. In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, we saw a flood of images on social media depicting, and here they are on your screen right now, depicting what appeared to be victims in the flood, but in fact they were generated using AI tools, and that's, you can put in a prompt and it generates hyper-realistic images. They got sort of lost with all of the other images. There was no shortage of devastating and heartbreaking images coming out following the floods and the hurricane aftermath. But these were AI generated, and it was hard for people online to tell whether they were authentic or AI generated. And what had happened was the relief workers also who use social media to, for example, find areas where, people might need rescued, like this person rescuing a dog, or what looked to be, a toddler being rescued. They use social media just like us to look for areas that need help. And so this was creating a lot of noise, and it was making it more difficult for them to act quickly.
So what's being done about it now?
Well, we're having conversations about it. I think, talking about the fact that there are these hyper-realistic images that are out there. The good news is there is technology that can help us identify what's an authentic image and what's AI generated. So imagine seeing this on your feed and having, for example, a little icon that would display and tell you, oh, this is an AI generated image. It was created using, X, Y, and Z tool. Or this is an authentic image taken with an iPhone, taken with a video, with a camera. That technology, that digital standard is called content credentials. There are many companies right now banding together, trying to get this adopted. We're actually seeing it on LinkedIn. We see it on TikTok. Today, I received a link from a technology company that just published the first video with an authentic label saying it was taken with a video camera.
Well, I'm glad you're calling it for us, Manuel. It's nice to just, break down what's misinformation and what's truth.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so this is a really good example of how damaging artificial intelligence can be, and these doctored photos and videos. They were literally routing emergency services trying to look for some of these people, and they weren't even real, right? And so that was potentially causing people that really did need emergency services to not get that attention in a timely manner. So this is, an example of just an incredibly negative use of AI. And I got to say, this is from over a year ago. And I love that she talks about these platforms that are going to indicate, hey, this is a AI generated photo or video. But I got to say, they're barely scratching the surface because I have not seen what she's talking about personally. I will say we use Adobe stock images sometimes. The library district does for images for our programs. They do tell you when those are AI, and I gotta say, you can totally tell. But I think we're barely, yes, and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna do a little quiz here in a second. They just are not doing enough because the way they can doctor these videos and photos is insane, and it just looks so real. You've all seen it. Do I have to? All right. Okay, we're going to do a little can you spot the fake test, okay? So let's look at this one. Which one do you think is the AI generated image here of the frogs? Top or bottom? You think bottom?
Top.
Yeah, top? Why do you think top?
Got weird fingers.
Weird fingers? Oopsies.
Or maybe the ones on the bottom are too perfect. I don't know.
So this is the fake one.
No.
Yep. I think it's a little rare to see perfectly round dots evenly spaced out on a frog, right? Fairly evenly spaced out. Whereas you're more likely on this type of frog to see kind of some blobs and some running together of some circles there.
The guy up top's too pretty.
He's too pretty. He's like perfect, right?
It looks like a robot eyeball a little bit.
Yes, you're right. I never looked at the eye. It's almost a little too perfect, a little too pretty, right? All right, let's do this one. Real. Which one is real? Let's see. Top or bottom is fake. Okay.
I don't like the eyes on the bottom.
You don't like the eyes? The eyes feel weird? Okay. All right, so this is the AI generated image. So one of the dead giveaways when humans are in the picture, look at the fingers, look at the arms, legs. They are very easily distorted. So she doesn't have an arm here. Well, we can't see her hand. It could just be down, but we've got some kind of weird distorted looking pinky here. This one? Also her eye. This right eye on her. So, and then we've got some distortion on some fingers over here. Fingers, look at the fingers. That's usually, I mean, it might, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a really valid point. It's continually, these platforms, these people, whomever are doctoring these images are always perfecting, right? But at least in this particular example, those are some of the giveaways as to, which one's real, which one's doctored. All right, we'll do a couple more. Okay, fake, top or bottom?
Bottom.
You're right. Yes. If you look really closely, this is all gibberish on their signs. There's a lot of, it doesn't even, it's nonsensical. There's a lot of blurring by the heads and the hair. And, okay, this one's a little harder. Which one's fake, top or bottom? It's the bottom. Does anyone know which skyline this is? It's Hong Kong. So you would actually have to probably be familiar with the Hong Kong skyline to really get this one. This one's a tricky one. But when I was looking at the response, when I was taking this quiz, the response to indicate why this one was fake is, look how kind of perfect this mountain line is. Kind of like the frog, like just kind of perfect, right? Whereas in reality, it's a little, it's quite a bit different. Not to mention, again, you'd have to be familiar with this particular skyline. There's buildings on this one that really aren't part of the Hong Kong skyline. So even though that one kind of looks like it because of like the way it's brighter, it's actually this bottom one that's the AI image. Okay, so something that I've been nerding out on lately is health literacy and how AI is really quite wonderful as far as getting health information in real time, accessible information. But again, you have to be a very critical consumer, right? So a couple notes on this one. This is a newer part of our presentation. So American Library Association recently put out, just in March, last month, a guide on digital pathways to online health information because getting health information online is so prevalent. So the other day, my dog was acting real weird, drinking copious amounts of water, peeing like crazy. I was like, what is wrong with this dog? So I went on to ChatGPT, and it gave me a diagnosis before the vet could figure out what was wrong with my dog. And it was right. It was completely right. He got his blood tested. He has Cushing's disease. He's fine. We've got it managed. But the vet was not able to get me that answer, but ChatGPT was. So listen, it can be right. It can be valuable. It can make sense of some really complex, complicated health information. However, public health in general is not black and white, right? And so a lot of times misinformation in the form of health information is, well, it's this or that. Public health is a lot more nuanced, right? And it's not data-driven, this information. And that's so important when it comes to getting information about your health, your, kids' health, your dog's health. So more than ever, it's really important to be a critical consumer of information if you're going to some type of AI platform to try to diagnose something.
If you want to learn more, we're going to have a whole program at the library this summer about digital health literacy.
Yes.
An expert come from a medical school near Denver to talk about, who's an expert in kind of translating complicated health information for the public, to talk about how do you navigate the health information landscape online. Yeah, it's a huge, we could have our own presentation just on health literacy, and I think we might. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Courtney. Okay, and I think I actually intended to have these slides flipped, but we're going to start here. So how do you kind of navigate all of this with AI specifically? And what are some concrete tools you can use beyond just kind of looking at the picture and trying to figure out if they have 18 fingers? So there are some kind of tips and tricks. So if you're looking particularly at social media or a news site that has like a caption, it's helpful to read the caption. Sometimes you'll see that the caption on the photo or the video has nothing to do with what is actually in the photo. And that kind of says to you, maybe they're trying to do something else here. Like maybe they're not really trying to give me good information. On social media, you can look at hashtags, and the hashtags, sometimes they'll even be a hashtag AI, like after the image, or hashtag AI generated. And that's kind of their way of being transparent, right, about what the content is, but you have to know to look there. You can also skim the comments. This is the only time I'll probably advise anyone to look at comments on anything, because that's generally horrible for one's mental health. But it can be helpful to just take a peek to see what people are saying in the comments of different posts or news articles, because there's a lot of sleuths out here. All of us are trying to figure this out. So you'll often have people say, this is AI, or go look here for the actual source, or like providing more context to a post or a news story. You can also see if you can verify any of the details, just like any other way that you would, like the tips that we talked about earlier, just like you would try and verify another post that could be a conspiracy theory. You want to do that with AI too. And then just kind of pausing and considering if the video makes sense. There's a lot of AI videos out there that just like, if you actually watch it again and you think about it a little bit more, it just doesn't logically come together for you. But it's eye-catching or it's alarming. And so the first time you look at it, it might strike you as something that you should pay attention to. Okay, so we're gonna kind of close out AI on the flip side of that. I don't know if anyone has heard of the K-pop Demon Hunters craze. So this was a very popular animated movie last year. It actually won the Oscar for Best Song, right? Best Original Song. There was an animated movie, maybe. Well, there was a lot of online discussion about the music in this movie being AI generated. So kind of the flip side of all of this is bad actors and kind of people that are creating misinformation or AI content in general kind of want us to doubt everything, right? That's sort of the point. So this video is going to touch on that.
K-pop Demon Hunters is a cultural phenomenon. It's also the perfect lesson of media literacy. Recently, an accusation that the music in the movie was made with artificial intelligence went viral. It got so many millions of views that Ray Avi, who voices Zoe, responded with a couple of clapbacks. Now, there's plenty of evidence out there that the movie was created by actual humans and voiced by living, breathing artists. You can check out the credits, watch behind-the-scenes videos, search for interviews with the cast. So why did some people think it was AI? I chatted with Anna Covington, our Senior Director of Education Content and a huge K-pop Demon Hunters fan, about what students should know about AI and how you can turn the movie into classroom learning.
AI-generated content is everywhere. Music, videos, images, it's on Spotify, it's all over YouTube, Pinterest. So it's really understandable to me that people are skeptical and maybe quick to question if something is AI. And I mean, the vocals in this film, whoa, just like pure pop power. And I think bringing it back to news literacy, and what we're seeing more and more is this dangerous impact of AI where actual images and videos, and in this case, music, is being dismissed as fake just because AI technology exists. And I think it's good to remember, like, that's what bad actors want. It's not making you believe and fall for like one untrue thing. It's just making you doubt the reality and distrust everything. And researchers actually have a term for this. It's called the liar's dividend. And it's good for students to know that it's out there and that like this might seem like a silly example or more lighthearted example, but there is, real measurable harm that can come as a result of this cynicism, so to speak.
If you learned something or just want more news and media literacy on your feed, follow along.
It's a good time.
So this is a really good source if you're interested just in learning more about this topic, News Literacy Project. They do a lot of really good work. But I really like that point because the AI world that we're living in right now is crazy making. and that's good for people that are trying to mislead us, right? They want us to misquote 1984, to question the evidence of our eyes and ears. Like that's what people want. And so it's also important on the flip side to use all of these skills that we talked about, not just to verify if information is true, to make sure it's not fake, but also to confirm the validity of information out here and to not just kind of throw up our hands and feel like, oh, every video I see online is fake. Because there's a lot of good and true content out there too. So it's important not to not to give up. So just to close out, we have this on our handouts too, just a few kind of key takeaways in addition to some of the specific resources that we shared. Always just remember to take a pause, kind of wait, especially in the social media environment. Take a minute before you share something, go through some of these steps. Check in, consider those biases, consider how it makes you feel if you're Courtney and you're sitting in the car going, yes! Like maybe take a moment, check your sources, diversify, kind of maybe explore some of those other sources from the all sides chart that maybe you wouldn't typically look at to see how different sources are talking about a certain topic or a news story. And then just take that minute to sort of broaden and consider that broader context, particularly when it comes to AI media, and look at some of those other things like comments and hashtags and those sorts of things. So I think that's all we have, but we have plenty of time for questions. And we do have all of these resources too as a handout I forgot to mention. So we have some specific resources for fact checking. You might be familiar with some of these. PolitiFact is one that comes up a lot every election season. It's a really good one. There are some election-specific resources on here. Vote 411, I believe, is the League of Women Voters site. And then some specific for health literacy as well. Both factcheck.org and PolitiFact have health sections. And then Unbiased Science is one that Casey found that is really focused just on health literacy as well.
And that Unbiased Science, there's also a podcast. It's a public health expert and a doctor, but then they have a whole group of people that help inform their content. They even on their website have talking guides if you're talking to someone that you might disagree with about vaccines, for instance, a very hot topic. They give advice for walking through those challenging conversations from a evidence-based place. So it's a resource I've really liked lately. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're happy to take questions.
So, do you have any good language for people in the world who have gone off on the deep ends and need some help getting back?
Right.
In general, like helping people.
Sorry, say the last question again.
Well, the thing you mentioned earlier, how good it was, but that
Oh, sure. Yeah.
that was more than
Yes, that's specific to health literacy. Gosh, Kelly, I don't know. No, I mean, that's hard, right? I think we've all probably been in situations where perhaps someone that we disagree with is pulling on sources that are maybe known to mislead or to fabricate. That's a precarious thing. I do think sharing where you're getting your resources or information and pulling upon that media bias chart is a powerful tool for navigating something like that. Right. And I mean, maybe it's even talking about how to vet sources if this person is open to that type of discussion, and I think also approaching things from a curiosity standpoint goes a long way, and continuing to ask questions to unearth, what do you really feel? Why do you really feel that way? Right? I think there's a lot of power in that. I don't know if you'd add anything to that. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, I think that's great. I think that is really hard. I think a lot of times too, it comes back to like emotional resonance, and that people, particularly on some of the really hot button issues, generally people have really strong feelings about them.
That's right.
And that is not necessarily what you're trying to change or the way in on an issue, but it can be helpful to just recognize, like, I'm hearing that this is something that you're really passionate about, or that you feel really strongly about, and just to recognize, like, you feel a certain way about this.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. But Yeah. I mean, I think someone, facetiously said re-education camps, but like there is a certain point where there are certain issues or certain topics where someone's lost on that topic. And it's just, you got to kind of balance the relationship that you have with someone right. too. And that's where it gets tricky, I think, in today's day and age.
How people fall into that. One is talking to a science denier. It's a researcher who had intended to do empirical research on the flat Earth movement. Because of COVID, he wasn't able to do empirical research. But anything I've read kind of comes back to when people go for extremist ideas, they are searching for belonging. Yeah. And so if we can provide them an alternative space for belonging, that goes a long way. So a really good book about that is Rising Out of Hatred. That's about Derek Roland Black, the son of Don Black, who, and Derek, David Duke, godson, was a rising white nationalist leader. And it talks about how just his opportunity to be around people who were welcoming and respectful of his perspectives changed his whole perspective, and he walked away from the movement. So belonging, community, those things I think go a long, long way.
I think you did a way better job than we did.
We've been trying to build at the library too, is try and find more ways for groups like this to use the library space to come together, but also how the library can create spaces through book clubs. I'm looking at Claudia, one of our book club members, like through book clubs and programs, and how we can help people create community and build belonging, because you're so right. That is a huge part of what people are seeking in all aspects of their lives. Like
anyone really wants.
Yeah. You think about kind of what people nowadays call the manosphere, like the incel culture. And a lot of that too is, searching for belonging. And so creating other opportunities to do that. Great point.
I just wanted to add something, and I don't know how I can combine what I'm saying with you. Okay, but I've also been really looking into this, and these very same people, if something is very expensive or very important to them, they'll do appropriate research. Okay, so for example, these very same people, they're buying a big house or something. They're not just going to go buy the first house because somebody put cookies out, or a car. Okay, and so, but I don't know how to translate it. Like I had a conversation with one person. I said, you'll do appropriate research for a new house. You'll do appropriate research for a new car. But what's more important than your child's life? What's it worth? Okay. But how do you combine that with the kindness way that you're approaching it? Okay. But these very same people will research some things appropriately if they think it's expensive enough. They're just not, for whatever reason, they're not thinking their children's lives are that expensive.
I'm concerned about, we're adults here. We grew up in a time when news sources, generally, your mainstream news sources, attempted to be neutral, okay? And having been a journalist myself, it's a difficult line to toe because we all have feelings and views and so forth. But it was very, very important that we attempted to do a balanced view. I always felt good when I wrote something where I got a complaint from both sides, okay? I knew I probably had done it right. But we grew up in that environment where we felt we could trust our news sources. You know, when Walter Cronkite came on, we believed him because he was generally giving us a straight story. We have children growing up today, and this really concerns me, who are not able to believe anything, okay? That so much of what comes at them is not true, or they get information from so many places that they become not being able to believe their own eyes and ears. We're old enough to remember what it was like to do that. And how can you bring this kind of information to children as they're growing up about how to navigate this uncertain learning environment? Absolutely uncertain learning environment. You interact with children. I'm beyond that point. So,
A really good case study is, I think it's Finland. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Finland, they start introducing media and information literacy in preschool in an age-appropriate way, and it continues throughout the course of a child's education. We're obviously not doing that in this country. I'm sure some school districts might value teaching media and information literacy, but it's certainly not, I think, embraced the way we've seen in Finland. And so, yeah, do you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think there are some resources out there that are trying to do that, like that news literacy project. They're geared towards schools and school children and trying to get that curriculum into school districts. I think Weld RE4 does have media literacy as a component of their curriculum to some extent. Probably varies by grade. Yeah. But I think the other important point too and I know schools do this to some extent, is reminding kids that the skills that they're learning in their English class, they still read in English, they still learn to critically analyze literature, like those critical analysis skills and critical thinking skills that they're learning in English and social studies and some of those skills, they should be applying to these things too, and kind of making that bridge, because those are our transferable skills to the media environment, and they have them, they're learning them.
That is being taught, but I found, I'll just speak up. I found that it really varies. I've spent time in education in Ohio, in Louisiana, and now in Colorado. And what you're going to get in Ohio and Colorado is going to be different. Right, yeah. And then especially where you're going to get is in the regions of the South. Yes. There's less focus, in my experience, in the South on being able to, and the English teachers are teaching their little guts out about this, but there's less focus on discerning fact versus fiction in certain regions, I think, of the country versus others.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would argue that there are still those sources out there that are completely unbiased and just telling it like it is. Yeah. I've certainly got my favorites, but what's hard is there's like 100,000 news sources out there. And so unfortunately we do have to be cynics. We do have to navigate this infodemic, right? With a very critical eye.
Yeah. But I think that's too why they say diversify your media too.
Yes.
They're not saying just pick one source off that sheet. They're saying look at multiple, because, there is perspective out there. Yeah. So,
yeah. You guys ever heard of ground news?
No,
I don't know. It's online.
Okay.
They do a left, right, and center. And they show you the bias of the words the left uses versus the right uses. And it's pretty cool, and it's free.
What's the name of it?
Like this is going to amplify.
Ground news.
Ground?
We might want to add that to our presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's an online?
And yeah, and it's free.
Ground news.
The one version of it. But I get that.
I love that. I love that.
I do think you make a really good point, though, that especially kids are in that ambivalence stage of like, it's all fake. Everything's
Yes,
fake.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so kind of, I think that perspective of like, we need to be able to trust our eyes and ears sometimes, and the perspective that you all bring to that conversation is helpful, and just reminding them that you can use some of those same skills to confirm that things are true also, because we need to be able to trust.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
I do think you're right in that there is a lack of trusted talking heads like Walter Cronkite, like Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings. I do think we've lost that, right?
Yeah, that's true. For sure. I don't think it was for sure, but it wasn't.
That is a good point.
You needed to hear.
There's a lot more transparency these days with all of these sources.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There were also laws that they would lose their license.
Mm.
They did not give fair and balanced reporting, and that was enforced. Now it's
Some more accountability. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I think in the education programs at the university level, and my son is a journalist, I
Okay.
know they're being taught
Right.
about
Yes.
bias because my son keeps me
For
honest.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, Mom, you posted that? I'm like, oh, you're right.
Yes.
Hold on, let me check.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
unposted a lot of things, not recently because I've gotten better at it, but I know that journalists are being taught in credible universities exactly what we're talking. I worry that when they get out into the real world that they're being compromised sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and their values. And, you know, my son's very fortunate that he works for maybe a slightly left-leaning publication, but, you know, his goal always is to get complaints from both sides.
Right.
And he tells me about that.
Right.
You know, he goes, oh, yeah, well, this one was on it. I was like, good job. You know?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. My past life is in journalism as well. I used to work for the Denver Post back when it was more of a paper than it is today. And I would agree that's still the basis of journalism.
So there's hope.
I think, yeah,
the right information is being taught. It's just about getting control of the people at the top.
that's right. That's right. Because again, a lot of things come back to monetizing, right? And that sways a lot, unfortunately.
What their readers are and what confirmation biases they have. and
Yeah.
what to click on.
They're very well aware of all these different types of misinformation and playing to them, right?
Also, a lot of these good news sources are behind paywalls.
Oh gosh, yeah.
People who don't have a lot of money can't get good information.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So access is a real barrier. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yet the sites that they can get access to might not be the most reputable.
That's by design.
I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Well, thank you all.
All right. Thank you for the good conversation.
Stay tuned. We're going to have some announcements. And I'm prepared to speak on this.
So we have updates on local happenings on your agenda. And I was hoping somebody from Signs of Solidarity was here, but we've revived it. We had someone who did it in another area and joined our group. And so I think is working with Alan now to do Signs of Solidarity again, try again to get some people. We still could use peacekeepers. So if you know of anyone who would like to be a peacekeeper, as our rallies get bigger, we'd like to be able to swap out some of our leadership team who are peacekeepers. Julie?
Please, and if you are interested in being a peacekeeper, either email me or Shelley, because we will get you on our list for peacekeepers. And we will.
What's a peacekeeper?
What's a peacekeeper? Okay, so when we have rallies, we have people who are trained in de-escalation techniques, And we try to have them work in pairs and spread out through the group. They're watching for any kind of issues, if they see somebody who's behaving erratically. Also for any medical emergencies, to get the person the attention they need. If they see someone we had one time a woman tear up a sign. She came up and tore up someone's sign, and she was acting erratically. And the peacekeepers will then talk calmly, and if they need to, then they'll call 911. And we're always in touch with the Windsor Police Department when we do protests. We work with them very closely. I tell them how many people we're expecting, where exactly we're going to be, and they always have patrol cars in the vicinity in case of anything. We had an EMT at our last protest, which was really good. There's another program that Greeley started. We tried to get a grant with them. We got denied. It's called Street Medics. That's another thing. If you could promote, like with anybody, you don't have to be a medical person. You don't have to be a doctor or a nurse or an EMT. Mel went to the training when they offered it the first time. The idea with the Street Medics was at protests to have a core group of people that could go to any protests in northern Colorado and be trained in first aid techniques. So you're naturally going to call, 911 and get an EMT there. But in the meantime, if you can provide medical assistance, if you know how to bandage up a scrape, if you know how to do some of the basic things, or do CPR if somebody has a heart attack, and wait for the actual EMTs to get there. So the training is done by nurses. It's free. It happens in the Greeley Unitarian Church. It's a 5-hour training. They give you supper. It's usually from 4 to 9 or 5 to 9, 4 or 5 hours. And it's a good training, even for your own life. Like if you want to get some first aid skills, if you have grandkids, and they hang out at your house a lot, you might want to take the training. And then if you decide you want to be part of the group that will move around, you can let the trainers know at that time. Social hour. So, talking about community and hanging out, we have another social hour coming up on April 25th at MASH Lab in Windsor from 4 to 6. That's a Saturday. And we all talk politics, but it's kind of a good chance to get to know people, and they get to know you. And, you might have common interests like stamp collecting or hiking or something, and make friends in the group. So MASH Lab, Saturday the 25th. May Day is May 1st. The leadership team met about that. There are going to be nationwide protests or activities on May 1st. It's a Friday. And the idea is no work, no school, no shopping. We knew in Windsor Weld RE4 was not going to cooperate with us and not send the kids to school. That was not going to happen. There was no way that was going to happen. And it's very hard in our community to get people not to work. And then there's a really significant number of senior citizens who don't work anyway, usually. So what we're doing instead, we still are encouraging people, not to shop. Don't go on Amazon. Don't go to the big box stores. If you do need to shop local and support our small businesses. If you can, maybe help someone out and watch their kids for them if their kids aren't going to school, or support them in some way if they aren't going to work. Maybe make them, a meal or give them a handout or something. Do that. We'll do whatever we can to support it. This is supported by National Indivisible. And what it is it's a litmus test to see, as we get closer to elections, if there is any kind of interest in our country to have just national protests where we just shut down the billionaires. We don't go to work. We don't feed into the whole machine. But it looks pretty pathetic if nobody does it. So this is their first step. Oh, you'll have to open the door. It locks. Thank you. So it's a test to see as we go on if we can really do that. In smaller countries like France, it works really well. If you can't get a cab, you can't get a plane, you can't get a train, the whole country starts to shut down. Our country is big and it's hard. So we'll see how that works. But we are doing on May 2nd, which is a Saturday, a May Day, May Day, May Day, the old May Day, SOS, Mayday. We're in big trouble here. We are doing a protest on that Saturday from 10:30 until noon, and we're changing our location since we've been getting some pushback from the Weld RE4 schools. We've decided to move the protests up to the 15th Street to 16th Street, maybe to 17th, depending on like what traffic is like. So that's the block where Safeway is on one side, King Soopers is on the other. And that way you've got plenty of parking because Safeway's never that busy. If you park in Safeway's lot closer up toward the street, or if you park in the King Soopers lot, which tends to be busier, and then we will walk up and down those two sides of Main Street. Terry? It's from 10:30 to noon.
And we have our big letters that say Save Democracy, and we need people to sign up. I've got a sign-up sheet in back. If
Okay.
you can come to that and hold the letter, please sign up. There's two sign-up sheets in back. One is for May 2nd, and the other is for, Flag Day.
So we will have a protest. We won't be counted in with the May 1st ones because those are only on May 1st, but we'll be doing our own action on May 2nd. So join us. If you've never been to one of our protests, it's a lot of fun. And at the last one, we had about 500 people and it was pretty amazing. So, we were asked to help with a highway cleanup. So Sustainable Windsor, which is a Windsor group that tries to keep Windsor, using less water, being mindful of our environment. They do a cleanup on Highway 257, and it's, I think, from mile marker 6 or 7. But anyway, you meet at Soldo Jalisco, which is the Mexican restaurant in Water Valley, and meet there at 9 o'clock. And you get coffee and juice and burritos and a free T-shirt. Takes 2 to 3 hours, and they give you all the things you need, the bags, the safety vests, and the pickers. So if you're free that day and you want to help out, Terry, you know more about this.
RSVP either to me, Terry Medhurst at Comcast.net, or to Don Johnson, 306 at Comcast.net. And they need an RSVP so they'll have enough breakfast burritos for everybody.
And Kelly, that's Kelly over there if you don't know her. She'll get that out in our newsletter. So if you're not on our newsletter or email distribution list, sign up in the back before you leave. We send several emails. I know sometimes it seems like a lot, but there's so much happening. Terry.
The other thing is we're trying to build a community. And when we reach out to the other groups that are of similar bent to us, we start building a wider community. And that helps our outreach, it helps their outreach, and we can all support each other. So I encourage people to do stuff like that.
Yeah. We're also having another peace gathering. So Peace Vigil was what we called them originally. We're switching that to Peace Gathering. It's at the Peace Pole at Treasure Island Gardens on Saturday, May 16th at 10:30. And it's a non-denominational peace gathering. We usually have several ministers, priests, atheists who will say a type of prayer. And Julie is in charge of that. And she can tell you more about, she's standing. Yeah.
I'm a minister also.
Oh, here you go. I'll stay close by you so you won't have to walk back up there.
Okay, thanks. It'll be at 10:30 at the Peace Pole, which is in Treasure Island Gardens. It's like on the south end of Treasure Island Gardens. Eastman Park, Treasure Island Garden. And close to 7th Street. You can probably see the Peace Pole from 7th Street. Anyway, I'm an interfaith, interspiritual minister, and I will be organizing some other ministers who would like to join us. And I also invite all of you who may have something to say about peace and whatever offering you would like to make. That's why we're calling it a peace gathering. And it doesn't matter if you're red, blue, green, purple. I do think you're interested in peace. Yeah. Thank you.
And the other thing people have been asking about is, what is National Indivisible doing for the two big summer holidays, Flag Day and July 4th? And they are working with other organizations on coalitions. And I sat in on a meeting last week, and they want to get through May Day first before they release what's happening. But they kind of tossed it out and said, if anybody had good ideas, what would we do instead of just protesting? Because in Washington on the 14th, it is Trump's 80th birthday, and he's planning a big. I saw that. He's,
It's my birthday.
So there's a lot happening.
I forget it until.
So yeah, there'll be parades and a military presence, I'm sure, and all kinds of things happening in Washington. And during the course of this national Zoom call, they said throw out comments. Well, some people started saying, what about picnics and what about joyful things and things that build community? And it kind of took off like wildfire. And I brought it back to the leadership team, and we talked about it on Tuesday when we had our meeting. And we've decided we already booked a pavilion in Main Park in Windsor. It's on the west side, close where the bathrooms are, if you're familiar with Main Park, not too far from the pickleball courts, for those of you who play pickleball. We booked it. It holds about 45 people. We booked it for the entire day. And what we want to do is have an amazing, fun picnic atmosphere. Bring your own food. We're not going to cook hot dogs or hamburgers. You bring your cooler with whatever you like to eat at picnics. And we're looking for a committee so that we can plan activities from like 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And so we want people who are creative, and this is an all ages kind of thing. So we want kids, grandkids, like all types of people to come. And we want lots of flags, like everywhere, because it's Flag Day, and we want to take back that flag because we're patriots too, and the flag is ours too. So if you're interested in being on a committee, or if you know someone who's good, Kelly was working with the art cart. If you were at our last protest, she was driving up and down on Main Street and, honking her horn. She took some flack on that on Facebook when she posted it. But Kelly called her, and she's at another event that day, but she is going to help with some art activities so that if you brought kids, there would be. But we're looking at things like maybe a costume contest, maybe something art where we could judge it and give the kids a prize of some kind. Games, like if anybody wants to be there at 10 and do yoga and like have a flag flying over your head, or Terry.
Elaine offered a prize for the kids art contest. She's got a business that is coloring
postcards
and a coloring kit.
Yeah.
And she offered one of those for one of the prizes.
So think about being on a committee, because we don't want to plan this. We just booked the shelter. We would like this to be from our group and people who are used to doing fun things. I am not a party thrower. I'm a party goer, so I'm not good at this. So anybody who wants to do that, step up and get some of your friends. If you've worked with kids, and you can think of fun games to do, and then it's going to be getting the word out. And we don't expect people to hang out there all day either. We want the activities to be from maybe 10 to 3, not till 9 o'clock at night. We've got the shelter, but I don't think we're going to be there all day. But just come for an hour or two and meet some people, and then do some fun things, and then leave. So those are all the things, and we haven't even thought about July 4th yet, because that's a day when a lot of times people are with their families or they're traveling to be with family. So we're not sure what we'll do that far out, but we'll get through the next few things. You will see some actions on the 25th, which is the day we have our social at MASH lab. There are some national protests to fight back on concentration camps. And there are some national things. If you think it's not happening here, it is. The other night, the League of Women Voters did a Zoom call on the Aurora, the detention center in Aurora, Colorado. And the very young women who have been inside that facility are with the American Friends, the Quakers. And those people are not being treated well. And they're not all guilty of crimes, as we all know. Some of them, it's just the color of their skin or that they didn't understand a process and they're being picked up. They're not being fed enough food. The calorie count for what they're being fed is really, really low. And this is run by GEO. So yes, they're pretty much starving them. They have the opportunity to work. They work for $1 a day, but when they want to call their families, it's like $15 for 30 minutes to talk to family members. So they have to work for over, like 2 weeks at $1 a day to earn enough money to talk to family members for 30 minutes rather. If they want to buy food to supplement, and the food they can buy is not great, like a bag of Cheetos, they work $1 a day and the Cheetos are like $3 or $4 a bag. So like they're really being not taken care of well. There's only one doctor for all of them that are in the facility, and there are like hundreds of them in the facility, and they're not getting the best medical care. There was an example, they said they give them one jacket and they have air conditioning blowing and it's cold in there. And so one person was being released and he gave his jacket to another person. The officers at the facility took the jacket away from him. It's like you're only allowed one jacket. So even trying to keep yourself warm is not allowed. And so it's horrendous. And then the saddest part was they said if somebody goes to protest, like if we went down to protest outside this facility, then it's taken out on the inmates. They make it harder for them. So the inmates don't want any protests to happen because they suffer for it. So it's a situation that seems, it's like, what can we do about that other than pushing, our legislators, our senators, our representatives to say, like, this is not the way we want to treat people who are in detention. First of all, we shouldn't be putting people in detention. And they seem to think that the reason for the bad treatment is they want them to self-deport. And then they'll get them out of there. But some of them are not willing to do that. So it really is a bad situation. And so we just need to be aware of things like that are happening where it's easy for us to live in our bubbles and not to know that. Kelly?
I contacted the Librarians voters to see if they could go away. Because it's not on their site. But I went through some friends. So we'll see if we can do it. It's really worth it.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Because you think it's maybe not here. Maybe not right here in Weld County right now. And this will make you laugh though. Kelly and I were on a group in Greeley, and they're really radical. and really radical. I mean, they call each other comrade. And but anyway, they thought, and it truly is a GEO site that's, I think, on 18th Street Road in Greeley. And it looks like a lot of these, detention centers. It's like in a strip mall. It's just like a little building. And so somehow they got it in their heads that they were like keeping people there. And so they started parking in the parking lot and writing things on the sidewalk in chalk. And the one woman kept peeking in the windows and went knocking on the door. And eventually someone answered. And he said, can I help you? And she said, well, we want to know if you're holding prisoners. And he called her in and he said, would you like to talk to me? And she said, yes. And he said, well, this is a GEO facility, but we don't have any prisoners here. And just because you see black SUVs here doesn't mean that we're holding prisoners here. But you kind of wonder, talk about like not trusting what you're being told. It's like, do we trust that? And are they preparing that building as a temporary like detention facility? Like, you don't know, but you can bet that this group is monitoring that place. and if they start moving people in, we'll know about it because they really, they're not going to give up. Yeah. So,
Where the guy said, though, that they were worried about vandalism?
yes, the geo man told her that the neighbors were complaining about vandalism at this building, which is why they were stationed there.
That really doesn't have a police department.
Yeah, we won't go there. I live in Greeley. All right, that's all I have. Is there anything anybody wants to bring up? Terry?
Okay. I have a petition here. This petition is for a graduated income tax. If this gets made into law, it will increase the Colorado income tax on millionaires and billionaires, and it will lower the taxes on other people.
Your headphones.
Yeah, it will lower the taxes on other people. You have to be a registered voter to sign it. But I would appreciate anybody who feels like they could sign this to sign it, and we will get them turned in, and and what it will support is childcare, K through 12 schools to make up the shortfall because we're being punished by Washington because of we're a blue state. So it will make up some of the education shortfall, and it will support rural hospitals and nursing homes.
Where does it go to? The petition.
I think this is to get it on the ballot.
To get it on the Colorado state ballot.
Is there a place we can read more about it?
Absolutely. I have a QR code, which you can.
Please sign it, otherwise she won't be worth living.
Can you tell they're a couple? What'd you do with it, honey? Oh, here it is.
Yes, what I do with it.
What?
See what I put up with?
And there's a whole thing you can read. Everything. It's all in here, the whole language and everything. I don't figure you want to do that right now.
Most of them are all related to us, so we're not going to go into it.
You can have it. I don't know which it is. Any volunteer?
It's probably none of those.
Yeah.
Go to
I'll just look it up.
Protect Colorado's Future.
Okay.
With the last 25 cards that
Kelly did the postcards all get taken. No
Yes,
comments.
I can take them. You know what they did? I have lost 25. But they're with my house.
Okay. So if anybody wants to sign this, come over here and sign it.
Encourage voters to vote in Virginia. And they're not due till April 27th. I just got a note that said you can send them through there if you want to. They're somewhere. So pray for those. It's 25. Okay. Anyway, so if I find them, Nancy Rose wants them.
Does anybody want to bring anything?
Not yet, but I will. I've got it written down.
If you then want to sign it, let Kelly know and she'll let me know and I can bring it to you.
Oh, okay.
And you want to put that on our next speaker.
Wonder if I can sign it
That's right.
online.
So our next meeting is May 28th, and it is here again. And our speaker is Michael Doherty. He's an attorney. He's the Boulder County DA currently. He's also running, I think, for Secretary of State, I think. And his program is on Know Your Rights. And I've sat through several Know Your Rights training. And then the state indivisible group brought him in to do a training. And his was by far the clearest and easiest to follow. And he wasn't wishy-washy about what your rights are, especially if you're protecting someone who's being surrounded by ICE and trying to be pulled in, like what you can do, what you can't do. And so when he did his training at the state level via Zoom, he made an offer to come to any indivisible group and do the same training again. And so he's coming on the 28th, and we'd like to have a really good group here. And just like with the library people, we will have him go first so that he can leave.
but he may take a good hour of our time that night going through that, and he'll answer any questions about what your rights are and what you shouldn't do. So yeah, please spread the word, and we'll be getting that out in our newsletter. And yeah, I think it'll be worth everybody's time. All right.
Please take some chocolates. Take as many as you want.
Thank you to everybody who brought cookies tonight. Yeah, they were great. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.